welcome him as he comes up to the stage to lead us in our final talk today.
Anybody feel like you need a big breath as you embrace yourself for family, for the holidays? I think the Christmas story gives us really good advice. When families like, hey, we're thinking about coming to visit you this year at Christmas, you just take the advice of the person who's in charge of the inn and be like, there's no room here. There's no room here. I do have a garage in the back. If you want to hang out with the cat and the dog, you can be with them. I think there's beauty and there's hardship in family coming to town at Christmas. Everybody agree with me? There's like this part of us that wants to be around family, and there's a part of us that's like, I'd be okay not being around family. It is both like exciting and terrifying. We know that we're gonna get together in a space where we haven't seen people that we love, that we're excited to see, and then the people that we know are gonna bring some difficulty. And so like that's kind of the Christmas season, is holding both. It's holding both. And something that we get to experience in the world today, I think, that's unique to us in history is that, and this is not a judgment, it's just kind of the reality of where we are. It's even more difficult, I would say, in the 21st century because families haven't stayed together. And so now we have to coordinate, where does everybody go? And I think that adds to the complexity. It's hard enough when the family stays together to figure out how everybody gets along. And now you have to kind of go all these places. And so we know the season is both good and also difficult. And so we're always praying for you. Well, as Mitchell said, we've been talking about the same thing for pretty much the whole month of December, at least the same concept. And that's the concept of my soul waits. It waits for something. Because in December, it's a time when we think about the story of God. I mean, we're always thinking about the story of God. But in particular, in December, we're thinking about how God enters into our world, how God comes in our presence through the birth of Jesus. It's the story of Christmas. And the story of Christmas, when we think about it, is meant to help us explore the ways that we get to experience God's presence with us now, like in our experience. And so the Christmas story, as you think about it, really is an invitation every single year to ask the question, where is God? Like, where is God in my here and in my now? I have been in church ministry my entire adult career, vocation, which started in 2001. And so I feel confident in saying that every Christmas season, a lot of us are in this place where we are in need of some sense of hope. Like, we need hope. We need hope that God's gonna show up in the midst of whatever the hard thing is we're going through right now. God's gonna be here with us. And what I've found in the Christmas season and working with people, because at Christmas time, it's when people reach out to me and say, hey, can I do a call? Can I meet with you for coffee? Can I talk about an opportunity for you to offer me pastoral counseling or care? And I get a lot of extra opportunities to meet with people. And I know in the Christmas season, often what happens is that people are in need of believing there's a reason to hold on to hope. But it's hard to hold on to. It's difficult to believe that it's something that actually is worth thinking about and processing and allowing to be a part of our experience. Most of us in this room, I would argue, need some sense of hope. But at the same time, I would say the majority of us who need hope in this room, we also realize that hoping is risky. It's something that sometimes in our experience has been difficult. And so if we could name it, I think what we would say is, I'm not sure right now where God is. We're supposed to be thinking about God's presence with us, but I'm not sure where God is right now, and I'm feeling really discouraged. Some of us in this room, your experience of your relationship to God right now is like, kind of like, where are you? I'm feeling abandoned, I'm feeling overlooked, I'm feeling neglected, I'm feeling invisible. And so those of us who have that experience, what we need deep down in our soul is a sign, a word, some kind of evidence that God is active in this world and in our life. But what makes it more difficult is those periods where we have to wait an amount of time that's longer than the amount of time that we want to wait for God to show up in our experience and the thing that we're going through. And so what we end up coming to is this place where we begin to question, is it worth waiting? Because when you experience what seems like the absence of God's presence, it carries you into darkness. And darkness is something that is so depressing. Nobody likes to use the word "I'm depressed" because it makes it seem like you're broken, like something's wrong with you. But the word depressed just means something's pressing down heavy on you. And darkness is something that does that. It's depressing. Not only is it depressing, it destroys your hope. Because when you exist in a place that feels like there's no opportunity for the light to reach you, you're not sure that you can continue waiting. And what I mean by waiting is you're waiting on God to do something versus deciding it's up to you to get what it is that you think that you need. Is it worth waiting? If that's where you are today, if that's describing you and where you find yourself, this is what we want you to hear here at Somos Church. We honor that part of you that aches for God to come. We honor it. Like, we don't want you to feel shame, and we will not join in the shame of what you feel, because we as pastors and leaders at this church, we also know and have known what it's like sometimes in our lives to dwell in a world that feels like it's dark. We recognize that there are experiences that we go through in this lifetime that makes it difficult for the light to get to you. And when those moments happen, I know in my experience, it doesn't do a whole lot of good to strengthen or to nourish my faith. I begin to question, how much longer can I wait? But what I see in God's word is that story after story in the Bible, we're told about people whose experience of the world made them wait in long periods of darkness. There are many, many moments in the history of God's people. You can read about it in the scriptures, in the Bible. You can read about it in other parts of human history. There are many, many moments in the history of God's people when they faced circumstances that caused them to question that their situation could change. And that may be you now, today. I've had some difficult calls with people this week. Like, people have gotten on a call with me and said, I need to talk to somebody. I need to be able to feel like I'm not alone in what it is that I'm going through. Like, really heavy stuff. Like, people deciding, will we stay married? Like, that's a hard moment to engage. Like, will we still be together? Will we make it through the Christmas season? Can we go have Christmas with our family and do our very best to fake it so that nobody knows what's actually happening inside of us and between us? I've had some really hard calls this week where they're asking the question, is there anything left between us in this relationship? And I'm not just wanting to talk about marriage today, but it's what's come to me. I had another call with somebody else who has had to take care of a family member for multiple years, and then they have another family member saying, hey, we're worried about you. And so this person gives me a call and says, I'm not really sure why I'm calling you. I just have family members who are concerned about me, and so I'm calling you. Hard moments of people saying, I'm waiting for something to change. I'm just not sure that it will ever. And if that's where you find yourself in this Christmas season, what I want you to hear me say is that in the wisdom that I have gained from God's word and God's spirit and God teaching me over the years that I've dug into as much as I can, the goodness of what God wants us to know, what I have learned is that in the Christmas season, it doesn't help to feel like you need to diminish or downplay your experience of darkness. What I have learned is what we all need in moments like this season where we're not sure if we can wait much longer. What we all need is for others to join us in the reality of how scary our situation is. And so that's what I have attempted to do. In this study, I have done my very best to offer you a message that allows all of us, gives us a chance to be able collectively to say together to God on our behalf and on behalf of everybody else in this room, God, we need you. We need you to help us believe that your goodness is going to come. So for the next few moments, what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on an Old Testament passage in the book of Isaiah. If you've been around church in your lifetime at Christmas time, sometimes this passage is used to tell the story of Christmas. And in this passage, what you'll find, or what I hope to reveal to you, is that this passage speaks about possibility. Some of you don't think your situation has any possibility of something good happening. But this passage speaks about possibility. And it offers possibility to a situation that all of you, if you were in it, would say, it's an impossible reality. In this passage, what you'll find is it also speaks about newness, like something new can happen. And it speaks about newness in the context of lifelessness. Because in this passage that we read, it's a time in history when God's people have been reduced to barely anything, just kind of a remnant. And in the midst of being reduced to barely anything, the prophet Isaiah in this passage offers to the people this proclamation that tells them that new life is coming. New life is coming. It's saying, in your dismal state, I want you to anticipate that God's gonna restore things. So if you have your Bible with me today, will you go with me to this passage in the book of Isaiah chapter 11? I want you to read it with me. I don't know if you've read this passage before. I don't know if you've thought of it in this way, but I want you to see the promise, the offer of hope, the beauty of what's described as a way for you to believe, I can wait. So this is what it says in Isaiah chapter 11, verse 1. It says, a shoot shall come out from the stump. I don't think anybody in this room talks with the language of a shoot. Does anybody talk about shoots that come out of stumps? I don't think there's very many people in this room. I was talking to some people as they came in today, and they were talking about a family member who lives in the country. Have any of you ever lived in the country? Not in a country, but have you lived in the country? Anybody? Yeah, some of you have lived in the country. Yeah, I mean, those of us who grew up in the country, like being around trees is just a part of your daily life. But most of us aren't talking about a shoot coming out of a stump. So it's very interesting that that's the language that we're given here, a shoot, something coming out of a stump. And it says it's coming from the stump of Jess. I don't know if you're familiar with scripture and all the names and everything that kind of creates this genealogy, but Jess is a very important character in the Old Testament, a very important character in the narrative of the whole book of the Bible, because Jess is somebody's father who becomes a critical character in what happens in the history of God's people. Do you all know who his son is? Who is his son? David. And it's talking about, like, David's already come, and now it's talking about from the shoot or from the stump is this other shoot that's going to come out of this line that's traced back to this really important character. It says, from that shoot, a branch shall grow out. It says, the Spirit of the Lord shall rest on him. Talking about the shoot. The Spirit of wisdom and understanding. The Spirit of counsel and might, the Spirit of knowledge and the fear of the Lord. His delight shall be in the fear of the Lord. This shoot that comes out in the form of a human being, it says he shall not judge by what his eyes see, which is how everybody judges in their lifetime. He'll do something different. It says, he will not decide by what his ears hear, but with righteousness he shall judge the poor and decide with equity for the meek of the earth. He shall strike the earth with the rod of his mouth, and with the breath of his lips he shall kill the wicked. Righteousness shall be the belt around his waist, and faithfulness the belt around his loins. There's a lot of imagery used in here, maybe a bit of hyperbole. You kind of have to sort through some of that, but when it gets to what I'm about to read to you next, I want you to hear the beauty of the existence. That this shoot that comes out of the stump is able to create. The wolf shall live with the lamb. Some of you married people in this room are the wolf and the lamb. And you don't know how to coexist. Some of you moms and daughters are like a wolf and a lamb. You don't know how to coexist. Some of you siblings, one of you is the wolf, the other is the lamb. What it's describing is a wolf consumes the lamb. If a wolf is in the presence of a lamb, it's done. It's over. But it's describing the wolf shall live with the lamb. The leopard shall lie down with the kid. It's not a human kid, by the way. The calf and the lion and the fatling together, and a little child shall lead them. That may have just described your family and your home, all those animals. I'm not calling you animals. But can you imagine in your home, and it's not meant to be this way, can you imagine in your home all the conflict that exists, and it's the youngest child who leads you to peace and safety and rest, able to coexist with you in a way that they don't have to fear or be afraid? It says, the cow and the bear shall graze. The young shall lie down together. The lion shall eat straw like the ox. The nursing child shall play over the hole of the asp, and the weaned child shall put its hand on the adder's den. They will not hurt or destroy on all my holy mountain, for the earth will be full of the knowledge of the Lord as the waters cover the sea. As simply as I can put it, this passage that we read in Isaiah is meant to give us hope. It's meant to give us hope. And it's hope in the promise of a coming king who will bring the potential for new life. Now, we exist in the 21st century today, which means we've had the benefit of scholars being able to read and interpret the scriptures for hundreds of years. And so when we read this passage and we see this text, we're not quite the same as those who originally received it, because we get the benefit of looking back. And when we look back, we get to see that this passage that is actually speaking forward, we get to look back and see this passage that is speaking forward is actually talking about Jesus. Jesus is the promised hope. But I want you to notice that Isaiah starts by talking about a stump. And a stump is really a terminated plant out of which nobody is anticipating much good growth to come. There's a lot of imagery, metaphor, analogy in all of this, but I think some of you get what I'm talking about. Your life, and you thought that it would be, has been reduced to something else. And when you look at your life, the existence that you have, what you once anticipated has not come to be. It feels like it's been cut down. And it feels like it's been cut down to a place where there's no possibility that it can be restored. And that is what Isaiah is offering to us, is this image of a stump, a lifeless stump. Now, looking back on my childhood, I ask you if you grew up in the country, and I grew up somewhat in the country. And so I look back at my childhood, and I actually remember a moment when my grandpa planted a sapling. And it was outside of his big living room window, huge living room window. And he planted that little tree in his backyard right there in that space. And in my memory, I think it was like 3 or 4 feet. I have no idea if it was 3 or 4 feet. It just feels like it must have been around 3 or 4 feet. And I remember my grandpa gathering all of us kids and saying, hey, be really careful when you play around this tree that I have planted, which really meant stay away from it. So I can't remember how many years it took. I don't know how many years passed, but honestly, I don't know how life works for all of you, but it felt like a blink of an eye, and that tree had become fully grown. I don't know if you've experienced a tree going from this little thing to fully grown. It's a pretty amazing thing to witness. And so this tree, like in a blink of an eye, like fully grown, got to a point where it was large enough for our family to be able to have a cookout in the summer and be under its shade. It had become sturdy enough that those of us who were kids that were told to stay away from it, now we could climb the trunk of it and hang in the branches, which I loved to do as a kid. I don't know anybody else. Like, I loved climbing trees. One of my kids got that trait. One of my kids, every tree she found when she was a little girl, she'd go climb it. It didn't matter if it was big enough to hold her or not. She just went and she found the tree and she would begin to climb it. And I loved that. And so when it got to the point where I could do that, I was like, this is amazing. This little thing became this big thing. It gives us shade, and now I can climb it, almost like Swiss Family Robinson. And then I don't remember how many other years passed. It felt like a blink of an eye again, and that tree was cut down in my lifetime to a stump. And it's not like anybody was obligated to tell me that they were going to do this, because I don't live where I grew up anymore. Like, nobody had to tell me, but nobody did tell me. And so the first time that I saw it, it was shocking to me, because my memory of walking in that area of my grandpa's backyard didn't match what I was seeing. Now I'm walking down a sidewalk where what once was no longer is, and it has forever been changed. Isaiah chapter 11, starting in verse 1, is talking about a tree that's been cut down. What once was doesn't exist. Like, it's talking about the termination of something that was once good, flourishing, full of life, and now it's been lost. But you know what? I think you're following me, but Isaiah isn't really talking about a tree. He's talking about a people. He's talking about the people of God. And what he's telling us, really to them and then to us, is that the result of your failure in being faithful to your relationship with God has reduced you to a lifeless stump. The vitality that you once had for life, that you carried for you and you carried for others, you've wasted it, and now it's been lost. And when we read this passage together, when we look at it and we study it and we think about it in the context of this is promising that Jesus is going to come to earth as king, when we begin to read it and we allow it to be something that engages with us where we are, it is meant to be something that allows us to sense the helplessness of their cause. These people have lost something that seemingly they will never be able to get back. And so when we read it, we're supposed to recognize the ache that they feel deep in their soul for this dream that is now beyond reach. Because what they once knew, which was protection and rest and peace and safety and security and provision with God, has suddenly seemingly vanished. And so if we're able to see the connection between this tree that's been cut down and now the people of God who have also been reduced like a tree to a stump, if we're able to see that, what the prophet really wants us to do today in our experience is to be able to feel the sense of sorrow for our own story that begins to come to the surface. As we see the people of God in the sorrow they must have felt, as we read it and we see it, it's meant to make us aware of the heartache that exists within ourselves, which nobody wants to admit. We would rather just numb ourselves to it. But Isaiah is saying, rather than try to dissociate from the heartache that you feel, I want you to engage the bitter parts of your story, the parts of your story that may feel like to you that you have lost a connection that you need. And if you're able to feel that ache that exists within you, what Isaiah begins to offer to you is this: rather than shutting down your heart to the desire that it feels. Rather than withdrawing into an internal place that puts a fortress around yourself. Rather than distracting or being distracted through busy activities. Rather than feeling soothed by blaming yourself or blaming others, what Isaiah wants you to receive is a sign of life, a sign of growth, a sign of possibility, because what he tells us is even though this tree, these people have been reduced to a stump, he says, but a shoot will sprout. And from that shoot, a branch will grow. And so what he's telling us in this passage, which is beyond our imagination, is that God restores vitality to the people of God. God restores vitality to you in yourself. And the reason why God does it is because God, in the restoration process, makes it possible to restore life and allow hope to flourish. And to me, this is the story of Christmas to those of us who are waiting for hope to arrive. So, rather than look to the future with fear, which perpetuates a heartbreaking repetition of loss, rather than look to the future with fear, like God's not coming, my story will never change, everything will always be the same. Rather than look to the future with fear, what Isaiah is inviting you to do is, starting now, to anticipate God's goodness. And anticipating God's goodness, what happens is that you're able to rest from the paranoia that says nothing will ever change. When you're able to anticipate goodness, it frees you to let the Spirit of God loosen a tight grip that feels bound within you. Because what we learn and what we're foretold by this prophet Isaiah is that Jesus is going to come, which we know Jesus does. So that Jesus comes to earth as a king who brings order to chaos and light to your darkness. Christmas is a time when we recognize that God came to us through Jesus and offers structure to an unruly system of this world. Like God comes to us to be present with us in Jesus, to be able to stand strong in the storm of life and show us the safe way forward. What the Christmas story tells us is that God comes to be with us through Jesus in a way that he creates a space for love and care to be both offered and received in a way that feels safe. What the Christmas story tells us is that God came to us in Jesus and is able to see you in the midst of your waiting in a way that allows you to trust something good is eventually going to come. God's people waited for the Messiah to come from the moment these words were spoken for over 400 years. And I know nobody in this room is like, I'm going to hold on to hope for 400 years. None of us are going to be here in 400 years. But you know who will be? Somebody who carries your DNA. In 400 years, somebody will have your DNA. And you holding on to hope now holds it for them. I would like to believe that those who came before me, like if I could trace my family back, which I have not done because I don't trust those things that people do to try to find out their ancestors. I don't trust it. I'm like, you're making it up. You don't know. Like, how are you gonna know when they didn't have DNA testing back then? I don't get it. I don't understand it, so I don't do it. I'm like, too many people have gotten reached out to by somebody saying you're my relative and they're really not. Like, somebody reached out to Brooklyn in a way that if it was true this person was our family member, then we would be cousins, pretty close cousins. And we're like, we messed up. We messed up. I mean, my uncle did date Brooke's mom in high school. That's a true story. Wow is right. Small town. See, if you don't wait, then you choose your own way. What I think is beautiful is that God gives us the option to choose our own way. I think that's beautiful. Otherwise, we would be robotic. We wouldn't get to experience the fullness of life, but God gives us the option. But God gives us the option to choose our own way, and it doesn't change God's offer to be close to us. It never changes it. I'm starting to realize that as a dad, you know, you send a daughter to college. I mean, I shouldn't even say send. Like, she's an adult. She's chosen to go. I'm not sending her. But when your child goes off to college, you begin to realize I have much less control of what happens than I ever thought I did. And you watch your child become somebody who is discovering their independence and who they are, and you realize it's beautiful to give your child freedom versus control. Even though there's moments where I want to control so that nothing bad happens. And I just think it's beautiful that God does that for us. And what I think is beautiful, and I think about it in relationship to my own children, is I've told them, I've told Brooklyn, I've told as many people as I can, there is nothing my kids could do that would change my desire for them to be close. And I will never leave it up to them to be the ones who create the closeness. Like, it's always on me. And that doesn't even feel like that's something that's on me. It feels like a gift to be a dad, like a gift to be a mom, to be able to say, this human being that goes through this lifetime is somebody who gets me to be somebody who says, I will always come toward you no matter what. And that's what God does for us. And what makes it hard is when we are in situations where we're not sure we can hold on to hope because we've been waiting. But I'm telling you, if you don't wait, then you go your own way. And in going your own way, that's when things begin to happen that put us in situations where who we are and what we dreamed of gets cut off because we've moved ourselves away from the presence and protection of a God who's saying, just let me be near and I'll offer you what you need. Instead, we go find it other places. We find it in relationships, we find it in substances, we find it in food, we find it in working out, we find it in trying to be perfect and perfectionism, we find it in our job, we find it in finances and money, we find it in all sorts of things. Everybody in this room has something that you go to replace waiting for God to show up. And I'm just saying to you today, if you will wait, and anticipate that something good will come, eventually it will. Because the goodness that comes will at least be felt by those who come after you. Because in the choosing not to wait, they get to bear the results of you trying to figure out life on your own. But the Christmas story says, God comes to earth to be with us. And so what that tells us is, even if it's 400 years, the promise is true that God's goodness will come. And so today, to help you work through and begin anticipating goodness, I want to offer to you a prayer. I've taken somebody's advice. I'm not going to make you stand and read the prayer with me today because somebody was like, why would I stand and pray? We stand to sing. And so I'm going to invite you to sit and pray today. You're welcome. And then I'm going to let you stand and sing the final song. The band's going to lead you. They're not going to sing behind me today. I'm going to pray first, and then they're going to sing. I want to read this prayer 3 times. And the reason why I want to read this prayer 3 times is because I want to give you a chance to allow its words to come to you. And I don't even say just the words. I'm going to say just a word. When I read this prayer, I want you to read it with me. The first time I read it through, you don't have to make sense of it. Just allow it to be something that you see the words as I go along. The second time that I read it, I want you to pay attention if a word jumps out at you. Don't judge the word, just receive the word. Is there a word in this prayer that jumps out to you? And the third time that I read it, I want you to listen to that word, and I want you to open your heart to receive what it is that God might be saying to you in that word. So I'm going to pray this prayer, and you will keep your eyes open and read the prayer with me rather than closing your eyes. And I want you to wonder, what kind of hope is God giving me in this prayer? God, you read my heart through and through. Give me a sign that you see me by telling me you get me. Give me assurance you can soothe my fear by telling me you got this. Give me peace that I'm safe by telling me you've got me. Give me faith that I'm secure by telling me your love has me. God, you read my heart through and through. Give me a sign that you see me by telling me you get me. Give me assurance you can soothe my fear by telling me you got this. Give me peace that I'm safe by telling me you've got me. And give me faith that I'm secure by telling me your love has me. One final time, God, you read my heart through and through. Give me a sign that you see me by telling me you get me. Give me assurance you're the one who can soothe my fear by telling me you got this. Give me peace that I'm safe by telling me you've got me. And give me faith that I'm secure by telling me your love has me. Amen. Will you stand with us and sing?